welcome to the podcast. My name is Roberto,
I'm Alejandro.
And my name is Eric.
and today we'll be talking about major events that have changed the world.
So through history, we've seen how various events have changed the way our political system, our economics, security, and how the well-being of people have changed.
Yeah, like I know, I think it's the 1970s. There's this company that proclaimed an embargo. Well, it was the oil crisis. The 1970s oil crisis, where an Arabic company proclaimed an embargo on certain nations. I think the nations are the U.S., U.K., Japan, and Netherlands, I think. And basically, what it does is just they don't sell oil to us. So basically, the gas that you use for your car, we're not gonna have that certain amount that we had before that event. And so that means that the prices went up. So the prices went up of gasoline that you buy at gas stations, or if not, companies were closing down stores because they couldn't afford to buy gas all of a sudden, because since that happened, they had to get resources from other companies, not from that company that they were getting it for. And since they stopped selling it to us, then those companies, we weren't able to get it from those. So the prices went up, and at least for as a consumer, people were looking for getting cheaper cars, because back then we had big, heavy gasoline powerful cars. And if you see after that, people were engineers were starting to engineer more fuel efficient cars, and cars that won't harm the environment as much too. So there was a good that came out of it. But pretty much everything had to change. Now you couldn't afford to go on to long trips, because gas wasn't as cheap as it was before that event. And now instead of getting big heavy American cars, people were looking towards into getting small Japanese economical cars too, where they could fit all their family, they could fit their whole family in there, and travel, or if not, go to the store or stuff like that. And and then if you see it triggered now American big American companies that didn't really follow what the Japanese companies were doing. They were now they were looking into, now we have to incorporate what they're doing. We have to look at what they're doing and how they're developing cars, in order so we could sell more cars, because it's pretty much everybody was buying Toyota and Honda cars, because they were small, and they used up less gas too. So that triggered a change in the whole automotive companies, or the whole automotive industry. And pretty much from American to European brands too, since they were part of the embargo. They all had to change everything and look at different technologies that would help them save more gas in their cars. I think that's when they stopped making all those cars that use carburetors too, because it wasn't as efficient as let's say a fuel injected car, because in the fuel injected car you could actually inject a certain amount of gasoline instead of just carburetor. What it does, it basically mixes the gas with the air, and it just sprays it in there, instead of it injecting a certain amount to certain cylinders and all that stuff. So it's they started seeing it triggered it basically made engineers look towards technology that was way better. So yeah, like pretty much they would buy fuel efficient American cars um, instead of consumers buying like big heavy muscle cars or trucks and stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's also like dependent on the just like a when there's a scarcity of a resource, it's gonna be more expensive. It's like, for example, in colder when it's during the winter, probably various vegetables like avocados and they're gonna be more expensive because since it's cold, there's less amounts of avocados being produced.
Mm-hmm.
So since that resource is more limited, it's gonna spike in price just to control the amount of consumption and demand. So
Yeah, it's like what we're seeing now, like what's going on right now, where basically like people are buying stuff and like they're selling it online because well they're buying more than what they need, and then they're selling it online because they know people are desperate to buy a certain item, like let's say like masks or stuff like that. And like if you see like now, I think now like after we're done with all this, um we're gonna find like a better way of like shipping things or manufacturing things too,
I
like
think it's
certain items that we need.
probably moving more manufacturing companies of masks and just medical equipment like PPEs in America. So
Or not like having like hospitals stockpile more, or having a warehouse where they could stockpile on things and then they could just get it from that warehouse to a certain hospital, like having more of a logistics company that's in charge of that. And like yeah, they just focus on stockpiling certain things and actually shipping them out to certain hospitals or clinics that need that thing.
like for example, in the oil situation, it's because America was more dependent on other countries for the oil resource for petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
That's why yeah, they were able to place that embargo because they were the ones supplying the oil.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't us. It's like for example, Mexico could put an embargo on their their avocados that they send to America because
Mm-hmm.
they're a big producer of avocados. So I mean, they have that power to.
Yeah, and then I know in I think in Mexico there's a bunch of companies that manufacture things over there. Like if you see like a lot of at least I've seen that like a lot of TVs are made in Mexico too. A lot of TVs, I think cars too. Like not that long ago they stopped making the Volkswagen Beetle, the original one. Not like the one the the California Volkswagen Beetle, but like the old classic ones. They stopped not that long ago because like yeah, it's a really popular car, and since like they want to, I don't know, they want to move to like a better, like they want to start developing a different car there, then they stopped it. Like instead of like them having it in like different areas, they just focus on having manufacturing areas in certain places where it's like of course much cheaper, because if you see at least over here in America we tend to ask for like higher pay, like insurance and all that stuff, and then like at least in other places you're not legally like obliged to actually provide that
Well, that's
to them.
globalization. Like it's like well, they have a different also the control of the wage, the minimum wage. It's different than over here, so that's why they really can't demand. I mean, if they had their own labor unions, that's a way they could demand a higher pay and better benefits. But the reason is that over here, the minimum wage is a lot higher than over there. And if you think about it, the amount of workers you're employing, and those are more people you have to supply benefits to. So yeah.
And yeah, just I feel like after this, like, a lot of things would change too. Like, if you see another like other events, like, let's say, like the HIV crisis, and in the U.S. or around the world, I'm not sure exactly how it is, but yeah, like, basically it triggered better like better like companies providing stuff that would protect other people from, like, contracting it. Because, like, yeah, of course, like, you're not gonna, it's human nature to, like, procreate, or not really procreate, but just do it, like, just have sex for fun. And yeah, like, if you don't have anything that's provided to you to actually protect yourself, then you're not gonna use it. Or if they don't provide the knowledge of, like, how to actually take care of yourself, then you won't know. So, like, yeah, you'll just continue doing what you do.
Well, it's because also HIV was recently emerging, and well, we saw it significantly affect New York, because in New York there was a thing called it was, I think, bathroom shops, where it was more common for gay couples to go inside, and they would have big orgies with a bunch of people. So at the same time, they couldn't really track who they were having intercourse with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like, imagine, like, one guy could be having sexual intercourse with maybe 20 different guys, and he didn't know. Like, he wasn't aware maybe who he had previously had intercourse with, or what was he doing, if he was injecting heroin or any other drugs into his body, or, like, if he used shared needles. It was more complex. And also another reason was that that's when, like, religion got involved, because it's not that it affected gay couples the most. It was just that, at that moment, it there wasn't sufficient information known, because it was theorized that HIV derived from Africa, from, I think it was a chimpanzee. So and yeah, it's like more dependent on like travel. How most likely someone came from Africa, and they probably had intercourse, or they probably got infected by a creature from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it could be a mosquito. But yeah, it was theorized that it started because of a primate. So and so yeah, the reason why it's just it's when the religion got involved. And well, it's not seen at that moment, it wasn't seen right that gay couples had intercourse. So they believed that it was just on them, they started it. And that's when later people began to find out that women began to contract the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And they began to pass it down to their children. So that's when people began, scientists began to question the mode of transmission. So, like, how, like, they began to question how it was transmitted from the mother to the baby. So.
Yeah, and also I saw that there's this kid that got that they gave him blood from a different person, because, like, he needed blood, and that kid, after they donated him the blood, the kid had HIV also.
Yeah, like, through blood transfusions, it was also very common during that time. So like I don't know if you heard also that there was a lot of controversy around it too, because the government began to supply people with clean needles. Because I mean, at that moment, it was when there was less restrictions on maybe less regulations on traveling. So the security wasn't as strict as it is right now, so they probably wouldn't check people as efficient if they had drugs, so like their luggage or maybe in their body. So like it's, yeah, they brought the drugs and more people use it, and it seemed to be more common in New York. So people would just share needles because it was more expensive. Needles were pretty expensive, so what would they do? They would just share needles, and since they share needles, that needle probably could have gotten passed down by so many different people. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I read that after this AIDS pandemic, the like tattoo shops, they also began sanitizing the needles that they use also to tattoo people.
Yeah, like there was
Cause
like it's just pretty much like there was better like it's just there's knowledge about like there's like information passed down to people like that, like okay, this way you like you transmit it, so now there has to be better regulations on like sanitation and like actually like sanitizing stuff. So like now they started programs where they were like, oh, if I wanna continue like doing this, like let's say like yeah, like injecting people with ink. Now I have to. Now it's against the law to not clean my needles well or stuff like that. Like they like the government start putting things where like it basically pushed people into like learning or just actually using better practices in order to like not transmit stuff or transmit certain like diseases, AIDS, HIV, or whatever could be transmitted through the blood or other contact.
Also, I think it's illegal now to give someone to have intercourse with someone without telling them you have HIV. Also, like you could sue them for that.
Yeah, so like if they contract something from you, like you could get in trouble without like only because you didn't inform them that you have something.
Yeah.
Well, because it could also be considered intent of murder. So.
And then also like after the AIDS pandemic, now there's more people that visit schools like by healthcare workers that visit schools just to like tell kids like show them ways that you could protect yourself from STDs.
Yeah, so like if you show them from a young age, it's gonna be in their head, and they'll know, like they'll know like what to actually do instead of like trying to teach somebody that has been doing it for the longest time already. Like they won't listen to you because I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for years. Why would I listen to you? I'm like yeah, like at least like if you teach them when they're young, they'll know, and it's gonna be sort of like second nature to them. I'm like, oh yeah, if I want to sleep with this person that I don't know at all, I'm like, I should wear protection, or I don't know if there's like sort of like if there's medicine that will prevent you from actually catching it. I'm like, oh, I'll take this pill that would help me out, and stuff along those lines.
Well, HIV is just more using contraceptives and just maintaining a clean hygiene. It's like I'm pretty sure during that moment there wasn't a very efficient condoms, so they'll probably tear up pretty easily. So yeah, like it changed, and well, like also at the moment there wasn't any medication, so like they were running a bunch of tests, and they weren't really sure if that medicine would completely eradicate the HIV in the person's bloodstream. So yeah, they began to use medicine, and they did various trials, and various different types of medicines didn't work. So they just there was just this one time when they used just a cocktail of the different medicines, and it ended up working, but it didn't like completely eradicate the HIV. So it was more like a
Like a preventative thing instead
no,
of like
not of a
eliminating it.
preventative, but it would decrease the amount of HIV found in your body, but you can't fully eradicate it. It's more like it slows down its process, and but like at the moment, like that, since it was recently discovered, it was very expensive. So that's when a bunch of different countries got involved, and they needed the medicine. Like Africa, they needed a supply of the medicine, but it was too expensive. It was too expensive for the government to afford, and you also have to take in consideration the amount of people in Africa living in Africa, and their current socioeconomic status. So they really couldn't afford it too, and also the healthcare system, and it also affected people with low income in America because they also couldn't afford it.
Yeah, and then like usually the low income like people in America tend to be like not really well informed of events or stuff that's going on. So like yeah, like it's harder for like let's say the government to actually pass on information to them than to like a more well off family too. Because like at least like a family like that's pretty well off. They tend to be more informed and they'll actually go out of their way to like find information and stuff like that too. Because like at least like a low income family, they don't really have time. They have to deal with all this and that too. I'm not saying that the other families aren't like don't, but it's just a matter of them not being educated themselves and having the time to or the funds to actually do it.
Well, you also have to take in consideration the amount of education they've received. It's like if you're trying to explain to someone what's happening when you get HIV, they won't really understand it. Like it would maybe in their case it might seem like a fairy tale, or it's just they don't have a clue of what you're saying. And HIV was more complicated than what it seems. So, and like you also have to take into consideration the for example, low income cities, the amount of information they were able to provide. They probably couldn't host a bunch of workshops or assemblies in their city council. So
yeah, and then yeah, that's like something that really impact us. Like at least like yeah, it changed the way that like people are informed about stuff. Because probably they might think that I'm like, oh yeah, if I just clean myself up, like I won't get affected. I'm like, but in reality, like you can clean yourself all you want, but since it's like I think it's a blood-borne disease or whatever it is, where it passes like if it gets in contact with your blood in any way, I'm like you pretty much have it. But yeah, like I know like another event that like that we lived through was 9/11. Like I remember I was in elementary school and my teacher was talking about it. I didn't even know about the World Trade Center at all. Like I didn't know about it until until the planes crashed to the Twin Towers. Like yeah, like I didn't know how important it was, at least to me back then. And like me, like I was a kid. I didn't really care. I'm just like, oh, like some planes crashed to some buildings that I don't know of. So
well, also you're very little, so you probably didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how much this would change the world. So because they at least I was in elementary school. All I wanted to do was just go to recess and play with my friends, and like I don't really care what's going on in the world as long as it's not happening to me. And like pretty much I just wanted to go out and play. And like I remember my teacher started like, I think it was a she. I don't remember her name, but yeah, like she was pretty sad about it and like turn on the TV and all stuff. We didn't get homework, so I'm like, oh nice. We didn't get homework or we didn't do anything at school. Like all we were doing was just seeing the news. Um, so yeah, and then like I get home and like my parents are like, oh yeah, you know what happened? I'm like, the planes flew into some towers. I'm like I don't know where it is too. I'm like, oh yeah, it happened in New York, and yeah, all this happened, and like if you see like yeah, like that triggered like now, like I think TSA started getting like more strict on people and all stuff.
No, well, the TSA was developed because in the 9/11 happened in September, and the TSA was created in November of that year. So, it was that caused the government to make the TSA to regulate basically the transportation security. So, just to reinforce it a lot more than what it actually is. And well, we see nowadays that when you go to the airport, there's many cameras around, security guards, just looking at your, for example, your posture, your physical reactions, looking if you're nervous, and well, so they could report that because it's very suspicious. And we know in airport it's a lot of people from different countries. So yeah, and like, well, the 9/11, it was the person who carried a bomb, and he had it in the airplane, and well, it's not that he had a bomb, but it was just, yeah, a person that's probably he looked suspicious when he was in the airport, and yeah, he had bad intentions, and I think he also carried a gun, didn't he?
Yeah. So like
what I've seen in documentaries, and so like, yeah, what we see now, they have big metal detectors. You go through various metal detectors actually before you even get into the airplane. So there's one that like, well, I just recently last year I visited Mexico, and there's like a circular capsule that you go inside, and it just spins around you, and yeah, it just detects if you have any type of metal or any other suspicious things. And after that, that's when they began to like pat down your body. So like they began to frisk you to see if you have maybe a weapon like made out of plastic or something that you have hidden in your clothing or your body. So
yeah, because like at least the metal detector won't be able to scan like a ceramic knife. Like ceramic knives are like yeah, like people tend to use them more often too. They're more popular than plastic ones because of course like a plastic one, like the edge would it won't keep an edge for that long. And yeah, like at least with a ceramic one, ceramic is much harder. I think it's probably harder than glass. And yeah, like it keeps an edge much faster, so like of course much better. So of course like a metal detector won't scan it, and like now they use those I don't know what exactly they're called, but like what you said, like this thing that scans and spins around you, like it pretty much scans for like stuff that looks like it, because a metal detector can only detect metal. Like it's in the name, a metal detector, it only detects metal. So yeah, like, and then like yeah, like if you see now there's like more complicated like let's say like X-ray machines, like when when you pass the bags through like TSA, they're able to scan like if something is organic or if it's a chemical thing or like what specific thing is in there, or what is it made out of. and like yeah, they're able to like see that instead of just like I'm like let me just open your bag, but they still do that because at least some people tend to hide other things in there too. Like
Well, it scans the when you pass your luggage bag. It basically, I think it probably like picks up the heat, and it also basically, if you've seen through their computers, it basically scans the outlines. So like the outlines of the object, like for example your luggage bag and whatever's in your luggage bag, the outline is what sticks out. So
mm-hmm.
and yeah, well, we've seen how they use dogs now to detect drugs and or other noxious chemicals that you might be carrying. So
Yeah, like I like if you see like yeah, when we went to Disneyland, like at least I didn't think that they will have like they'll have people that like have dogs and they're sniffing people. Like I didn't even know that even there they had security like that too. Where basically yeah, like in theme parks now you have to, I don't know if it was because of 9/11 or I don't know if they did it before, but pretty much like you go to metal detectors, you have to take off like anything that is made out of metal, or you have to let them know if you're carrying anything, because like now even liquids too, like you have to have like an empty bottle or you can't even carry a bottle.
it's also probably because of also the scare of bioterrorism. Like I don't know, I think it was around the same time that 9/11 occurred. They sent envelopes with anthrax. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Like a
very
white powder.
yeah, and well, it's very poisonous. It infects your body right away, and it just yeah kills you. And yeah, they basically send letters, envelopes, and well, since it was a white powder, they couldn't really tell if like if it was smeared all over the envelope. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they just picked up the envelope and they ended up getting the powder. So
Yeah, or not like some people might think like, oh, it's just dirt. I'm like, I wonder why there's dirt on my envelope, but whatever. I'll just clean it off and just read the letter that has the powder or other stuff.
and also like well, if you're gonna mix together two different reactive chemicals, you can make an explosive out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's another reason why yeah, like
Like in airplanes.
bioterrorism.
Yeah, like that's why now in the airport and the airport theme parks and all that stuff. Like they tell you to like open it up and empty it out or other
Well,
stuff.
well, like it's also it's more like well in in the airport it's more like exposed um containers. Like if you're carrying an open lotion, if you're carrying open lotion in your bag, or it's well I've seen also it's more like a more of a liquid form. Like for example, if you're carrying perfume, it's more of a liquid form
Mm-hmm.
than lotion. Lotion's more like a semi-solid liquid form. So uh, yeah, and I mean, well, also out of cologne or perfume, you could you can make like a Molotov out of it. So
Yeah, like and then like it has to be a certain size too, if I remember well. Like I think I don't know, probably I'm not sure, but I think that's why now they make those like really small bottles of water too. So you could carry through the yeah through the airport or through security.
well, yeah, there's certain things you could carry. It's just
Yeah, it has to be a certain size
yeah,
too.
or you also need to have a notice, like an excuse notice that you could carry this medication or
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, because they don't want you to they don't want you to poison other people by like let's say like your makeshift um medication that's actually poison.
What about the Chernobyl nuclear reactor meltdown? It's also something that changed the world. So I think it was probably like the one of the first nuclear meltdowns that have actually happened on Earth.
Well, I heard it's also changed the way how we just our different sources of energy. So now like it's like also, for example, the coal. We've shifted from using a lot of coal as our energy source to using like fuel. Now you have windmills, solar panels, and it's like the same thing with nuclear energy. We've sort of slowly shifted from using it as an energy source.
But at least nuclear energy tends to be like the cleanest thing that you can use. But if you see,
it could go wrong really quick.
Yeah, it could go wrong because like at least the vapor that comes out from the reactors is just water vapor. It's no like there's no chemicals in there, or we're not using any fuel or any coal or anything. It's just water vapor, because at least what it does is basically like a nuclear reactor. It's basically like a steam engine where like you use the uranium or whatever they use in there, and it just heats up the water. So like let's say like propellers or whatever it is, like get like the rising steam and generate power off of the steam. So like yeah, it's one of the cleanest one, but it's pretty dangerous to deal with if you're not following the proper protocols.
It's one of the most dangerous, and well, all that nuclear energy, they're actually burying it in big capsules under the ground. So there's another question that like what happens. Well, it's very difficult to dispose of. I don't know if we currently know a method of disposing it, but I don't think so. That's why they're still burying big capsules of nuclear energy inside the ground. And there's also a question, what if they use that as bioterrorism? What if a country finds out of those locations where we have those capsules buried? What if they attack those locations? So,
and also that could have affected a big portion of Europe also, because the reactor was burning for a lot of days, and it was slowly spreading radioactive particles across Europe. It could have it was something very bad, but luckily they took care of it, and a smaller portion of Europe was affected by this also.
Yeah, and I think there's like I think there was one in Japan where like there was a nuclear like meltdown. I think there was like an earthquake
and a tsunami.
The tsunami that occurred, it basically was a big tsunami, and it basically flooded the whole power plant.
Mm-hmm.
And like the big containers were they were overflowing and basically collapsed.
And yeah, like, and if you see, it has like I think Chernobyl still hasn't recovered. Like I think
still a ghost town.
Yeah, still a ghost town. Like pretty much it is all overrun by vegetation and animals. They're there because like of course if there's no if you don't see any humans there, I'm like of course animals are gonna go in there. Like if you see now that like people are not going to nature parks and all that stuff, bears have been going into like different places. Like let's say they're going down to like houses or cities and like exploring stuff, because like now like yeah, we like currently we can't go to national parks, or we can't go to like places that we usually go to, and like let's say feed those animals, or let's say on accident we leave food there for them. um like like now they're not able to get like food as easily as they used to, so now they're going to places where has humans in there. So of course now there's I think there's a video where there's like a leopard that went down into like a little neighborhood. I think I've seen bears and other animals too that have been going down to like explore and
Well,
find food.
and
Well,
then also, the you know the animals that are inhabiting Chernobyl right now. There's some that are mutated. Like I think I recently saw this guy catch like a giant catfish that was next to a river nearby the reactor.
well, also another problem with the whole Chernobyl situation was how um the basically how the security of that power plant and how the political leaders handled the situation. It's what we saw, for example, in China, how they handled the situation, and they tried to prevent the information from basically going into other countries and making a lot of journal entries about the whole situation, and they stopped. Well, we've seen through documentaries and articles that like their government prevented the information of the whole explosion in Chernobyl going into the higher government or the president of Russia. So, and the thing is that they also prevented people from immigrating from out of Chernobyl.
Yeah, like it's basically if like I think like if a government deals with it earlier, like early on, I'm like there's less like damage that's done to it. Like if you've seen like recently, yeah, like how this epidemic's going on right now. Um, like there's been like governments that like just close down borders right away and like try dealing with this problem as soon as they can, and like they're not dealing with like as much problem as like let's say I don't know like as Italy. I think that's one of the most affected like
No, but like
countries. Or
I think currently right now is
but
the U.S.
but the problem, it was more that it's not that they really reacted. It's that they didn't want to react for the reason that they didn't want to pick up so much attention. They didn't want their
or
information
like
to go
cause
into other
like a
countries.
panic.
Yeah. So yeah, for example, if out of a sudden they just completely evacuated Chernobyl, and they brought in a bunch of airplanes with supplies and a bunch of different engineers and chemists to resolve the situation, it's gonna pick up a lot of attention. So there's gonna be a lot of reports on it, and that's what they didn't want. So
Yeah, they didn't want to seem bad to like let's say like other nations around the world. So like that's why they didn't do as much. Like they didn't promote like better. Like they didn't do it as fast, or they blocked information from actually leaving. So like they won't seem as bad, and yeah, and it's just probably they're just trying to keep like a cleaner image by not doing that. But yeah, it affects more people. Like let's say the people that live nearby, they let's say yeah, like you felt like an earthquake or whatever it is. I'm like oh, it's just an earthquake, but in reality the it was a reactor exploding, and yeah, so like now like you're being exposed to more radiation than you actually need to, and yeah, you're gonna be affected by it, because like at least I think like the well radiation does into your body, like it'll start sort of like boiling or just messing up your body from the inside out.
Well, it breaks down your body. It breaks down everything. Uh, that's what radiation does. Um, it's like you saw. There's like many reports of people bleeding and like internal bleeding because it breaks down all the structures in your body. That's why if you saw in the series Chernobyl, there wasn't any actual reports on people going transparent, but if you'd ask an expert, they'd say it's possible, but there wasn't any actual reports, because it's pretty scary. Your body going completely transparent. That would mean that like all the your skin pigment, the melanin in your body is completely broken down, and that's why if you saw there's people that their hair fell off. That's why, for example, when someone has cancer and they go to get a chemotherapy, their hair falls for the reason that the radiation breaks down the various structures in your body, so like it breaks down the hair. So
like at least in that, like you're trying to trigger the cancer cells, but like you affect the other cells around your body too. And like of course if your cells are affected by radiation, that means that it won't be able to like develop well, or actually like divide, like let's say like the whole cell division is not gonna be all like it's not gonna work how it usually does, or like it's trying to heal itself, but now since it's altered, because I think it alters your DNA or your RNA.
But the thing with cell division, it's like in cancer, it's not as normal. It has to be regulated. For example, cancer. The reason why cancer is so effective is that there's the cell division. It's unregulated. It's so like the cell keeps on dividing. That's why the cancer cells continue and growing and spreading around your body, because the cell division isn't regulated. It's out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really that the cell division. It's just that it just breaks down your body.
Well, this concludes this episode of the podcast of Open Minded. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye.